Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Her Pocketbook Podcast. Tonight, we are welcoming our special guest, Dr. Rosche Brown. Dr. Rosche Brown is affectionately known as the Doctor of Rethinking. As a licensed clinical psychologist, radio guest, financial coach, and professor, Dr. Brown challenges her audience members to remix their thinking to cause a mind shift into a new way of being on the journey of spiritual, psychological, and financial development. Sit back with us as we discuss the relationship Black women have with money and how taking a psychological approach to handling it is imperative to our financial success. So you have many titles under your belt. You are professor, financial coach, clinical psychologist, and then the one that I love the most is the Doctor of Rethinking, also author. But can you just let us know, how did you even get to be the Doctor of Rethinking? A little bit about your background and how you just became the Doctor of Rethinking.
So the Doctor of Rethinking came about actually maybe a few years ago when, I'm already a licensed clinical psychologist, and I used to be on a radio show. And on the radio show, we used to talk about rethinking yourself, rethinking areas of like spirituality. And so since I was always the person who brought in the psychological principle to what we were talking about, I became known as the Doctor of Rethinking. How I kind of got into this field of, psychology as well as got into like finances was, I'm from a place in California, the Bay Area. I'm from Oakland, California.
Oakland.
That's where I'm located. That's where I'm from. And what people may know about Oakland, like, okay, Keisha Cole. Y'all know about Keisha Cole. Y'all know about Too Short. The first African American female vice president.
Right.
Is also from Oakland. And so I grew up in Oakland, and I grew up in household like a lot of people may experience, where there were people in my family who were dealing with substance use. They were dealing with like kind of poor money management, and were on like welfare and getting money on the first and not having money again by the third.
Right.
And that was the environment that I was in, and the environment was kind of a little bit of chaos. And so with that, even though chaos was happening around me, I always wanted to understand it. Like, why is that happening? Where is it coming from? What is their history? And so that led me into the field of psychology to really just understand, what was going on for people, and even in what's going on for myself, having grown up in that environment. And then a little bit later, as I started to be a psychologist, I recognized another pain point that we have, not only within our mindset, mental health wise, was also like a financial area. And so that's when I really started to dive deeper into understanding finances a little bit better as well.
A lot of people don't realize that, your background, your upbringing, it shapes how you think about money, how you think about your finances, how you think about your mental health when you grow up.
Definitely. I mean, everything shapes us. I was just, this month actually is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I was looking at a young lady's IG Live, and that was the question of like, how do we get mental health issues, right? And, there's all kind of different things, like trauma, there's abuse, there's people modeling certain behaviors for us, right? That is shaping us. Right. People tell us what to do, but more important, it's not like, what you tell me not to do. Is what I see you do is what I'm actually going to start modeling within my life.
Yeah, and no one taking the time to explain.
Well, who don't even understand. They're just kind of mimicking what they saw their parents do.
So now you just said something about May being Mental Health Awareness Month. So this month is, a month to educate ourselves on mental health and how to get help. And so your approach to psychology, for anyone listening, where would we start? Like, what are the first steps to even say, okay, I want to go on this journey to try to help myself? Where do I even start?
Well, so, there's different like levels, right? There's a spectrum when it comes down to mental health, where, sometimes we just want to do a little like tune up and a check in about our mental health. And then there's sometimes that we're having more severe symptoms and we need to get some extra support. I think one area that's going to be extremely important for people is going to be the self-care aspect, right? So a lot of times, we're doing so much in our lives, maybe you wear many hats in your life. Maybe you're you're at work and you're leading a team at work. You're also coming home and you happen to be a wife or a husband, or you have to also be a parent at the same time. You have to then take care of your parents. You have sisters and brothers, people that are depending on you. So you have all these different roles and you're being stretched really, really thin. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, and then on top of that, you have the world that we're living in, right? Mm-hmm. And all that is impacting you. And so it's important for us to take a little time for self-care. I use an acronym around self-care. For care means C is to cast, A is attention, R is responsibility, and then E is energy into the self, mm-hmm. right? And so a lot of times we need to take a moment, get ourselves our mental health day, right? Where you just take off of work, you take off from some of those roles, right? So you get out of maybe not having to be, a spouse that day. You get out of not having to be a parent in that moment, and you allow yourself to have time, whatever that may look like for you. If you're able to do a full, overnighter, even better, right? You get a hotel, you financially able to do that and just sit there and start to be reflective. Or maybe you only can get a couple of hours and you can go to a park or something and get into some nature. But you give yourself some time to think about your life. And you think about where in my life should I be giving myself more attention? Mm-hmm. Where do I have a responsibility to be giving more to myself? Because I'm not able to pour from an empty cup, mm-hmm. right? So I need to figure out, if I'm pouring all the time to everybody else, where am I getting my moments of being filled up? Am I taking enough time of energy on myself? And so I often tell people kind of going through what are I call the 8 F's, right? So you want to look at your family. Are you setting the right type of boundaries? Are you giving them the right type of energy and love? And are you getting enough love and energy back from them? When you look at your friendship circles, what's happening in your friendship circles? When it comes down to your finances, right? What are you doing when it comes down to your finances? Are you giving some attention and energy into that area? When it comes down to your fitness, right? Your food, what are you doing in those areas? Are you thinking about your future? Thinking about your career, thinking about business. Where would you like to be that you're not at this very moment? And then also fun. I think that a lot of people don't think about fun. Mm-hmm, and are you experiencing fun and enjoyment in your life? Or are you always working, busy, always giving, and, not at least enjoying?
That's a hard pill to swallow for some people, just taking the time out for self-care, because you end up feeling so mm-hmm. guilty. Am I being selfish because, I'm just leaving the house for a couple of hours and I just want to be by myself? Am I being selfish because I've just, gifted myself with a trip alone? It's just hard for some people to wrap their mind around me.
Yeah, I think that, women in particular, we're socialized to always be nurturers and always be constant givers, right? And so we're not really given a lot of models on how to be self-full, right? We right. always are thinking selfish
right.
is the bad aspect. But one thing that's really always important that I have noticed in particularly mothers, I tend to see it more than anything, is that when they are overwhelmed and have too many demands on themselves, mm-hmm. that irritability becomes extremely high. Right? Oh. So now you're in this place you're angry and you're impatient.
Definitely. So I feel it all the time. I'm agitated.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just feel you impatient. So you yelling at your kids. Mm-hmm. Is that actually your best self showing up for your child?
Right.
And your children? Now you're yelling at your spouse, right? Every little thing that he's doing is irritating you. Right now, you're not even showing up as present with maybe the customers that you serve.
Right.
Now you're angry at your boss. So all these things are happening, and that's the main area where you see it, is that you're irritable everywhere you're going. right? And that means that if you were to give yourself one day, you will show up better for all these people for months.
Yeah,
Compared to you're actually harming them.
Yeah, at least
by showing that negative energy.
Yeah, time to just calm down, to just take a breath by yourself. Yeah.
Take a deep breath. And the best area of self-care is not even just taking that one day, but it's like incorporating in your life, that you wake up, you take a couple of 5 deep breaths. I always tell people like, I don't have no time to be taking no breaths and I don't have no time to slow down. I'm like, well, take it in the shower. You got to go there. Right? You should go. Right? So while you're in the shower, take a couple of deep breaths, give yourself some affirmations that you like to say to yourself to command your day, to expect only good things from your day. Like if you need good things from your spouse, then you need to speak good things over your spouse. If you need good things from your children, you need to speak good things over your children. If you need the good things coming from your job, you need to speak those things, right? And so you take that time, and this literally will take you like maybe 2-3 minutes to take 5 deep breaths and just speak those things. And you can come up with those things and say the same thing every single day. And that'll just be your mini self-care that is really going to change the game for you every day.
You have the financial coaching aspect of your services. Now, here's a question that I have for you, because it's unique that you are a psychologist and also financial coach. So my question is, and this is just something that a couple of girlfriends and I were talking about the other day. So we were talking about how, again, as women, because most of our audience is women anyway. So again, as women, and I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for everybody, but I know plenty of people that are in the same situation. I am an emotional spender. So, if something's going great, I'm excited about something, I'm celebrating something, my first thing is, I'm got to go buy something. Let me go spend some money. And then on the flip side, if I'm upset, if I'm sad, I'm like, let me get up. I'm going to go walk through the mall. And then at the end of the month, end of the week, end of the day, I find myself with all these impulse buys. And now I'm mad at myself that I spent all this money, but it was all based on emotion, right? But it was all based on emotion. So looking at you having both sides of the coin, the psychological side and then the money side, do you correlate those two when it comes to your financial coaching? Like, so, when you think about financial coaching, someone sits you down, here's what you have, here's where you're trying to go, here's how you can do it. But a lot of people don't take the mental part of it. Like, how do you even think about money? Like, what is it that's when you get emotional that makes you run right to your pocketbook? So,
it's extremely important, because I realize, over time for people that, it's not about money, right? Like oftentimes when I start speaking engagements or even just talk to people, I'll say like, do you want more money? And everybody's like, yes, I want more money. I want more money. But I recognize that more money just makes you more of who you are. Who are you in your relationship with money? And money is a relationship like any other. So if we look at how do we learn relationships? We learn them indirectly and directly from what people tell us or do. And so I like to get a more deeper for people to see, what has been your relationship with money, asking them more about what were your money memories, who was showing you about money, who was that money model, and how did that develop your current money story, what happens with you with money. So I kind of like to go through that process with people so they can have an understanding of what that may look like for them. And then they can now understand their current money patterns. So what is motivating you when you're excited and you want to reward yourself, right? So how do we do that in a safe way that we're not putting you in a place that you're going into debt, right? Because rewarding yourself is not no problem with that. But we need to have a little bit more understanding of what goes on that made you need that reward, right? What are you trying to fill up in that moment, And then also on the flip side, when things are going bad for you, and you decide to go walking in the mall, and you just buy things that you don't really need, we need to understand, how do we understand your emotions beforehand? And what are some other ways to cope? Because the reason why you're using that as your coping skill is because that's the coping skill that you know and feels the most familiar to you. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we have to figure out, like, what are some other coping skills that we can start to practice in this moment versus something that's going to make you feel worse later on. Kind of like the idea of like any level of addiction, right? Whether your addiction is like substances or food or whatever the case is that we have to understand the triggers that happened before it. And we have to understand, like, you know, what can we do to replace this maladaptive, mal meaning bad, adaptive, because we've learned that it's worked for us here and there. But how do we change this maladaptive thing into something that is going to be more positive? And so that takes that's where the psychological aspect comes in for me when I'm doing like almost like some financial therapy for people. Mm-hmm. Is that I need to uncover what's really going on for you, right? And where did you learn this pattern, and how has this pattern served you throughout your life, and how has it not served you in your life? And then we create like some organization around your money to fulfill some aspects. So some of it you may be able to reward, but maybe you can buy yourself $100 pair of shoes. So maybe you get some slides or something like that, like versus you buying like, you know, a $500 pair of shoes, right? You have to figure out like what makes sense based on your budget and where you are. So that's when we look at the numbers.
Let's talk about these books that you have.
Okay, so yeah, I have a couple of books. One book is the 31-Day Self-Love Challenge. That was like my first book that ended up coming out. It's in journal format. You know, there's history behind how it came to be. It started off being like a real book that you can read all about my life. But then I was like, I don't want everybody to know all my life story. But it came from, a breakup. So somebody broke my heart. You know what I'm saying? We didn't experience it. He cheated. He was tripping. He didn't know no better, right? And so, what that process led me to. And so that was what the book initially was. But what I recognized in that process of the book when it happened, because, you know, I was really like heartbroken from it and thinking that I was so like great and mighty that it wasn't going to happen to me. Right. Like, how could that occur? You know, right. Recognizing that like there were other areas that were exit signs in the relationship that I chose not to take. I didn't leave the relationship. So I had to think through that for myself and say, maybe I'm not loving me, you know, as much as I need to. And so I went through this like process of going through like 31 days of like self-love. And I was just like telling myself to do intentional tasks every single day to love on me. And so that was like my first book was the 31-Day Self-Love Challenge. And so that's like on Amazon, and it's the 31-Day Self-Love Challenge with Dr. Rosche. And then later on, maybe a couple years later, I created a dream journal. The dream journal was really made because of my life as well. Like when I was 14 years old, I had decided that I was going to be a psychologist or a pediatrician. Like I told myself that. I wrote it down in this book. I didn't know nothing about no manifestation, nothing about no law of attraction, you know, nothing about even journaling. I just so happened to be writing some things about who I was going to be in the future. It led me, I didn't even look at the book until after I already became a doctor. Like I became a psychologist when I was 25 years old. So I got my doctorate degree at 25. I believe the reason why I got it so quickly is because I had made the plan at 14. Yeah. You know, not knowing who a psychologist was, never hadn't gone to a psychologist. But I was like, I'm going to be one of those. I was like, where did that come from? Like, I look back and I'm like, who was a psychologist in my life? How did I even find out the term? You know, because nobody was really a psychologist. But I made that decision at that time that that's what I was going to be. I was going to help people with their mind. I knew that what they did. And I know that I felt like I could help people because that was something that I was doing unintentionally at 14. And so I got done very quickly. And so that's how the dream journal came to be. And then I had like a couple of ebooks around around money. Renewing your mind around money, my mind on my money book. That's like a wealth building strategies that people should just kind of be aware of as well.
People don't realize the power of writing things down. You know, like you said, you were 14 and you wrote something down and stuck to that.
I feel like, I mean, manifestation is so real. And that was before I understood what it was.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, they say write the, in scripture, it says write the vision and make it plain.
Yeah.
You know, and it was something that I was doing. And so that's why I really suggest, like, for all, like, parents to actually encourage your child to, you know, write down their vision, you know, sit with them and allow them to be imaginative and dream and create possibilities in their lives.
So, you know, when kids say things, oh, I want to be this, oh, I want to do this, you're kind of like, what? But in their mind, it's attainable.
Yes, right. It's definitely possible. Like, the world hasn't, like, you know, thrown them any kind of blows of negativity like
Right.
it may have thrown you that in your life.
They're not tainted at all. They're just speaking their mind freely.
Yeah. I remember hearing a mom one time say to her daughter, she's like, oh, I want to be a doctor. And she's like, oh, that's going to take a long time in school. You know, but she said it in a way that would have made her stray away from becoming it.
Yeah, just
and
discouragement.
Something that simple, you know, just going to mess up the whole, like, her whole possibility.
Yeah, just
because you just limited her.
Beats down her self-esteem already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you're already saying that, you know, and it's so interesting because a lot of people said that, you know, not to me, but like other people my age were like, oh man, you'll be in school forever. Until I got out. Once you realize, like, when you're maybe 16, 25 years old seems far away.
Yeah.
But once you're 25 and other people are 25, you know, they're going to be like, wait a minute, you have a doctorate degree? Like, now it changes, like, completely, and I'm considered young still, right? Like,
and they looking at their life. They're looking at their life like, well, what did I do? I wasted all this time.
Right, exactly. I'll never forget as a young, a guy who, me and him lived in the same neighborhood. There was like a whole block party for him when it was time for him to go off to college. He got a scholarship, and then he was gone for maybe a year or two, and he never went back to school. And I ended up and I would come back home. I went to school in New Orleans. So I went to Xavier University in New Orleans. And so I would come back every, you know, semester, every summer, and different things like that. It wasn't until after he had stopped going to school. He just was like on the block at this point. And he was like, what? You got your bachelor's? Then it was like, what? You got your master's? What? And he was at the same place. And he all he could do was say what to me. Because I just kept on growing. And he was at the same exact place.
Right.
You know, at the same stoop in the front of his house. Like, you know, chilling. Just a trip.
Do you have any workshops or like speaking engagements or anything coming up anytime soon? Yes.
So what I like to help people with, I have one way to get in touch with me. The best way would be to kind of join like my community and join my email list by going on mymindonmymoney.com, right? So mymindonmymoney.com.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about, you know, you got to keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I do practically like every month, I always have speaking engagements about something, right? April was financial literacy a month. Now we're in May with mental health awareness month. And so what I was able to do in this month, I have a lot of different things coming up. I have a university called Rethinking Money University. Every third Saturday, we have, you know, some great speaking that happens. I break down things like credit and business credit and budgeting on those calls. I also have, you know, I'm actually having somebody come to do a money hypnosis to really just put us in the subconscious right state of prosperity. So that'll be coming up even in the month of June. But I also have like a couple like free workshops about like how money works that comes up that are, you know, really, you know, fun and interesting, like, you know, abilities to do that, how to understand your 401k. And so I like to, you know, send it out to my email list to let them know, like, here goes a free one. You know, here goes one that has like a low cost. And then here goes like, you know, join one of my programs. You have to put maybe a bigger investment of your money, time, and energy into it, but you're going to definitely get more efficient and quicker results. And that's what we're looking for. We're trying to look for results. 2021 can't be the same as all of our other years.
Cannot.
You know, I tell people all the time, there is no reason why you don't know something. You know, there was a time where we could just be thinking something in our head that we just have to like just live in that. Like, how old is Beyonce? We could be thinking like, how old is Beyonce? I wonder. You know what I mean? And we could try to figure it out and then we just give up. But now we can Google anything in our lives and get the answer right away.
Instantly.
For random information. So when we're looking at like financial literacy and different things like that, there's somebody who's already talking about it. And you can go through the process and go to YouTube University and learn it all. That is definitely like a way to do it. Now, if you want accountability, somebody to hold your hand, somebody that you can actually talk to and speak to and ask questions to, then that's when you do a little bit of investment in yourself, right? It's the way that you can invest in some shoes, a purse, and all these other things. You can then also invest in knowledge and somebody to hold you accountable to making changes in your life.
And Dr. Rosche Brown is here to give you that knowledge. Invest in it. Well, I thank you so much. Truly appreciate you just enlightening us on our mental, our financial, and our overall just self-care. Is there anything, again, it being May Mental Health Awareness Month, is it anything you would speak to the audience to just educate them on?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, really the self-care is going to be the number one thing. I do suggest for people, you know, if you are thinking about therapy, just even thinking about it like, oh man, I wonder what a therapist might be like. Maybe I do need therapy. If that ever comes in your mind, in a time like this, and it's very important, is don't delay like kind of what you can do today. I have to say that because, you know, a lot of times people will hold it inside saying that they need therapy and they'll tell themselves that and procrastinate, and then they'll have a good day and be like, no, I don't need it. I was tripping. And then they'll go years with never getting services.
Yeah.
And throughout this whole entire time, if you ever even told yourself you may want therapy, you're probably depleted. Something about you is getting depleted and more depleted and more depleted and more depleted. And so once you get to the point that you finally like, oh, I have to have therapy, it's going to take time to actually get into services. And especially like, you know, since we've been in COVID land, if, you know, pre-COVID, there was stigma. I've been doing therapy since 2006. There was stigma around going to a therapist, thinking you crazy and all this kind of stuff. It was no kind of mental health awareness month that was happening at that time. People weren't talking about mental health. You didn't have like celebrities mentioning their mental health the way that it is today. So the world is completely different. You definitely didn't talk about mental health in the church the way that we talk about it now. So the world has shifted where it's not as much stigma, and COVID put people who maybe never even had a mental health issue. Now they like, oh, I think I should probably go get a therapist. Right? Like COVID changed the game for us. And so the demand on people who want therapy right now is so high. It's so high. And so it's important for you to get started like ASAP. So call your insurance company, whatever your insurance is, you do the work and you ask for a therapist. You can go to different websites, like Psychology Today. If you need to invest in getting therapy, then you should invest in getting therapy. You should pay out of your pocket. If your insurance is not going to cover it, if you know that you need it, then you want to go ahead and pay into getting it. So Psychology Today, there's Therapy for Black Girls. There's the Boris Henson Foundation, which is the Taraji P. Henson area. You guys want to take the time to look. There's Association of Black Psychologists. So there's resources that are out there for you to find a therapist. Even if you're just checking in with somebody once a month, if you're thinking about it, act upon it and try it out. That's what I would definitely say when we're talking about mental health awareness. If you look at your family, notice them, pay attention. I mean, suicidal rates right now are high as well, and it happens in the Black community. Like, I know everybody thinks that it don't happen like that with us, but it does. And so we have to start to pay attention to our babies, to people who are out there struggling. If you see somebody struggling, be just open to be a listening ear to them as well.
Yeah.
And then help them with some services.
And this is serious. We're trying to drop that stigma of we don't need it, especially as Black people. We need it probably the most. We need it. We have so much trauma in our bloodline. We need it the most. So we try to drop that stigma of you don't need to talk to somebody. Everyone needs to talk to someone.
And I don't discount the level of like talking to your friends, right? People who have higher levels of support systems can manage things a lot better. You know what I mean? You can go through a breakup better if you got a girlfriend to talk about the breakup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Compared to being by yourself and isolated and alone and not be able to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So there's value in there. But what a therapist can do that a friend can't do is if they can make the determination if you like, oh, you going to another level, like you're not sleeping like you need to, you anxious all the time, you know, it's causing more difficulty. Oh, you need an actual coping skill. Girl, I don't have none. Like, but a therapist does. You know what I mean? So, like, there's different tools that you'll be able to get when going to a therapist, as well as you don't feel like you're burdening other people with your problems. Yeah. Right? So sometimes we hold things in because we're like, I don't want to tell everybody, like, I'm going through it again. So you feel shame about it, so you don't share it. But the therapist is there to be non-judgmental and listen to all your irrational thoughts and everything that may come up for you that you may not want to share with other people. It's not going to hurt, but, you know, to try it.
Yeah.
If you're not in like dire need right now, you're not in like a distress of any sort, then you can find the exact therapist that's going to feel the most relatable to you. You know, you can check out ethnicity preferences, gender preferences, whatever specialties they have. You know, you can do a little bit more due diligence in finding somebody compared to when you need somebody. You're going to have to take who's available.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that sometimes is difficult because you're in distress and you're like, and I did the work. I got a therapist and I don't even like this therapist, right? I don't want that to be people's experience afterwards.
Yeah, you get to this desperate state, like somebody just help me, anybody, you know, and it's just, it's not the right fit.
Yes. Because therapy is relational, right? So it's all about like relationships. So you do have to feel connected with the person.
Yeah.
And so if that person is too different from who you are, sometimes it can make you feel like you can't relate and you can't connect, and therefore you can't get the the services that you really need. It's serious. Your brain gonna be like, let me go get me a therapist.
Right.
At least for a little bit.
I gotta dump some stuff out, clean out my brain, you know?
Yeah. Talk to some Jesus. You know, you talk to Jesus too, but talk to therapists on top of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have a good friend who has a clothing line that says, I talk to God and my therapist.
That's right.
Right? like I do both. Like you don't do one without the other.
Need that balance.
Yes.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation. I thank you so much. But I thank you for your time so much. I really do. I'm proud of you. You got it done at 25, and you, like I said, you have all these titles under your belt, and you're living up to them. And you know, thank you for being 14 and saying I'm going to help people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosche. Thank you.
No problem.
I want to thank all my guests this evening. You know, it truly warms my heart to be able to vibe with women of like minds. We have so much to offer this world, and it's a damn powerful move when we can offer it all together. Ladies, there are so many more conversations to come. I don't want you to miss one word. So make sure you subscribe to Her Pocketbook Podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms.